What's up, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the Outcast podcast. It's your girl, Hunter. I know it's been a long time since you've heard from me, but I'm back. Anyways, for this episode, we wanted to take a completely different approach from our usual roundtable format in the spirit of Trans Day of Remembrance. We decided to focus on the experiences of Black Trans Femme individuals here in Muncie, Indiana, in hopes of bringing awareness and understanding to our plight. For those who don't know, Trans Day of Remembrance was created to observe and commemorate all trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming individuals who have lost their lives due to anti-transgender bigotry and violence. The day was founded by Gwendolyn Ann Smith as a way to honor Rita Hester, a Black trans woman who was murdered in Allston, Massachusetts on November 28, 1998. She was 35 years old. Fast forward 24 years later, Black trans femmes and trans femmes of color are still being murdered at unbelievably high rates. So, trigger warning for all our listeners, we will be discussing some heavy topics, from the triumphs and breakthroughs made by Black trans femmes to the ugly transphobic violence that plagues our society. Most importantly, we must realize that Black transgender people are not characters you see on TV. We are not perfect and pristine. We are human beings with access to the same range of emotions and personalities as anyone else. So first and foremost, recognize our humanity. To bring us more so into the topics that we're going to be talking about, I decided to read a monologue from a play that I'm writing called Trans American. I don't know what this will be. Processing trauma, drama therapy, a comedy show. I suppose my life is a comedy show. I can recall times where my presence was comedy, where people would look at me and think, how amusing. You think you look like a woman? How amusing. You think you belong? You think you deserve to be in public or go to a bar? How amusing. How hilarious. Is this a show about the pitfalls of the experiences of Black transgender women? Well, no, you can watch Pose for that. I am not a perfect figure. I'm not a role model you can show to your mother. I'm rude. I'm selfish. I'm a bit of an alcoholic, and I can sometimes be self-serving. You know, my job is about helping those in need, but I can never seem to help myself. Though I work in human services, I can never seem to be all that angelic in real life. In real life, I hate everything and everyone. Okay, that isn't true. I want to, though. When the frat boys laugh, I want to be like the guy who makes love to me for sport and say, nothing matters, Hunter. We're all going to die and no one will remember us. So who cares? He will play make-believe with my body, tell me he loves me, and go back to nihilism. How freeing it must be to just decide to not care. But girls like me, we live with real consequences. We die like we expect to. Like the girls in the porno, our bodies are the museums to the male fantasy, all contorted and anatomically incorrect. In a world this cold, I want to be a nihilist, but I can't. The truth is that I love so many things. But how lame is that? Whatever. This is not Pose. This is not Anything's Possible. I am not a role model. I'm not someone you can look up to. If you're looking for a show that makes you understand trans women, then remember that to truly understand, you must understand us as individuals. So no, this isn't about the struggles of Black transgender women. This is about the life of a particular Black trans woman. I am not a victim. Oppression is not my story. Oppression is the force that hangs over my story, but it does not define me. I define me. You are not implored to think I'm a real woman or even think that I deserve human rights. But don't mistake anything that I say for anything less than what I wanted to. You may digest that how you want to. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest.
Hi, my name is Teri Lightning. I am 25 years old. I'm a trans non-binary femme. My pronouns are they, she. I've been living in Muncie for about 5 years, and currently I'm a server at a restaurant, server/host, and yeah.
And some of you guys that listen to this podcast know me. My name is Hunter Greenleaf. I'm 22, and I am a receptionist at the YWCA downtown. I lived in Muncie for 12 years now. So, how do we know each other? How do you and I know each other? It's kind of weird. Like,
yeah, it's
like I knew you before you knew me technically.
yeah. How I kind of, from my perspective, it was just I was at the Harat, was it? And I was just drinking with a friend, and then you come up and say, "Is your name Lightning?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm like, and you said, "I've seen your TikToks." It's like,
yeah, because it was
okay.
so weird. Like because I remember like I would see your TikToks all the time, and I guess because like living in Muncie so long, it's like, you know, it's like the Midwest, like it's fucking lame. So you know, just like thinking like,
Wow.
you know, like when you see like actually like cool people online, you don't think they live here because like Muncie's fucking lame.
Wait, you think I'm cool?
Then I like saw you. So then I remember I like would see your TikToks or whatever, and I'd just be like, oh yeah, this person probably lives in like New York or some shit. And then like I would go to Brothers all the time with my guy friends, and I would see you there, and then like it wasn't until I saw you there the third time that I like put two and two together that this person whose TikToks I saw all the time was like a real person that lived in my hometown that I frequented the same bar as. It was really fucking weird. Especially because I just don't see a lot of other trans people in general, and then especially not someone who like I see online, but like not like actually in person. So that was like really fucking weird.
Yeah, honestly, it was like really nice because it was like you were the first Black trans woman that I met in person, and then after that, like with Finding Spirit and everything, it felt like I was less alone in Muncie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels really isolating because I feel like I know so many trans people, and I like know. I shouldn't say that. I mean I know quite a bit for like living in the state that I do, but like so many of them, like no shade, are like white. So it's just like it's not bad, which isn't a bad thing, but like I feel like it's just a very distinct experience, like being a Black trans person. And so like finding other Black trans people that have that experience, like it's just such a special thing.
Yeah, because I feel like we're probably going to talk about this later, but like I feel like with white trans people there's this sense of, yes, you're still oppressed because you're trans, but there's at the same time they're still privileged because they are white, and sometimes, you know, white trans people don't recognize that, or it's hard for them to recognize that, or
Yeah,
come
and
to
I
terms
feel
with that.
like as a Black trans woman, I feel like Black womanhood in general is definitely like played with a lot. Like you just see like even with Black cis women, like their womanhood is played with a lot. So then when you like make that Black woman trans on top of that, like I feel like we as Black women in general just have a different relationship with our femininity than white women do, which placates in the way that we go out in the world and stuff. So I just feel like when I just meet other Black trans women, it's just such a special thing, just because they're just like, I don't even feel like I have to explain myself too much. It's just like you get it, like you just understand, like you understand like the weirdness, like you understand the treatment, like you understand the weird looks, like it's just always a special sort of thing, like with meeting other Black trans feminine people. So on the subject of like gender identity, like what would you say is like your like journey with that?
So I would say, I remember back in 2020, someone, I remember I commented, sadly it always goes back to TikTok. I commented on a trans woman's, this trans woman was like basically looking for friends who were like part of the LGBT plus community. And at the time I was just, you know, a cishet. And I just said, I am straight, but I like to break gender norms and whatnot. And she mentioned, oh, gender nonconforming people are a great part of the community. And it's like, wait, what? Because like during then I was like working on a research study, and I thought that was just a academic term. And it was like, you know, I dig, and it's like, yep, that's part of the community. But then when I like looked more into like my connection to, you know, what it meant to be a man and what it meant to be a woman. Like during those 6 months between like October 2020 and March 2021, I was like, I really don't feel like, a man who is just breaking gender norms. But also at the same time, because like I don't have any connection to like the man gender roles or any connection to any of that. And then also at the same time, I felt like with womanhood or womanness and all that, it's like I really didn't feel like I had a connection to anything with that either. I felt
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle or somewhere between the middle and like womanhood.
Yeah, or
So
like outside of it.
yeah, so for me, it's like I feel more comfortable saying I'm non-binary or a trans femme woman, a trans femme person, and things like that. So
I feel like my journey with gender was like very chaotic cuz like so like I came out as gay when I was like 12. Like I came out at school when I was 12, and like I got very comfortable in my identity as a gay man because like I had decided like made this decision like when I was 12 that I was a gay man. So I like was very comfortable in that identity from like age 12 to age 20. And it had become a part of like my life, and like that was an identity that people have come to like love about me, and I'd come to like love that about myself. um and then I just remember like turning 20 and like starting to think about it more, and I think I started to just meet more people that were not cis. um and I still like I was always aware of trans people, but I was just like, I'm not trans. Like I'm obviously a gay man, cuz like that's what felt that felt real to me, like growing up with the father that I had, like when I had discovered that people were allowed to be gay. Which sounds so dramatic, but I really did think like people weren't allowed to be gay. Like that felt freeing to me at the time, so it felt like it was real. Um and then like, going back to fucking TikTok, like just seeing a lot of trans women on TikTok didn't necessarily make me think like, oh, I too am a trans woman. It just made me think like, oh, I'm not cis. So like what exactly does that mean? And so like I just remember um trying different things, like, like changing my name, and then I just remember like, trying the whole pronoun thing, and like I have a memory of my aunt Keisha sending me money for Christmas, just randomly. And around that time, I was like thinking about buying myself a wig, and she just sent me that, and I was like, I'm gonna like buy my first wig, and like it was not great. Like it was like one of those like it's like one of those like $25
like the ones
like
that you would find at
costume
Party
type wigs.
City.
Yes, it was giving. It was very much like Party City. Like I was not gonna get through with that wig.
Oh my
Like it was
gosh.
not gonna give. Like, and so I remember like ordering that and just being like so excited about it. And I got like little butterfly clips to go with it. And like I look back at those pictures and like it's a fucking mess. But like it was good. Like I needed that at the time. Like I needed to like play with that at the time. And I remember like sending pictures of myself wearing it to my friend Lorelai and being like, I don't know, like maybe I shouldn't do this. And she's like, I don't know, like you should like, she's like, I think you just need to like pluck the hairline a little bit. Like I see it for you. And I was just like, I don't know. And then I just remember, like I took a selfie with it one day, and then I remember, um, like I like was like, it kind of felt like a social experiment at the time where it's just like, I'm gonna make a dating app profile for myself, and like I'm gonna like change it to people looking for women. Like that wouldn't that be funny? And then I just remember like talking to guys that saw me in that way, and like let's be honest, like most of them were chasers. But like being seen, even if they were chasers, like the fact that they were seeing me as a woman and not just like a gay boy, um it still helped me kind of like put like my like the wheels to turn of, okay, this is how I see myself. Like I like being seen this way because I'm finally being seen for who I am for the first time. And then with meeting my ex-boyfriend and then being with him, because he was so open about our relationship, it made it to where like because I was very scared to like go out as myself. And then meeting my ex-boyfriend, he would just be like, "Oh, let's go to a skate park in a random town with like no black people in it, and like let's go to a basketball court and you can watch me play basketball," and like just random shit like that. So it forced me to be in public as myself. It forced me to like actually go places dressed femininely, and like that kind of like it stopped being so scary at that point because I was doing it in real life more and more. And then just coming into the bar scene and doing it in trial and error as well. Like I feel like that's what helped me become more comfortable in my womanhood. I feel I don't know if I don't know if this is a good thing to say, but it's weird. It's like almost like men taught me how to be a woman. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
Like,
It's for me. It was more of a struggle because before I came out as gender nonconforming or later to non-binary and trans femme, I kind of learned from 2016 that, you know, men can wear leggings, men can wear nail polish, men are allowed to be feminine. And when it came time for me to realize my identities, it was really difficult because it felt as if all the stuff that I was like trying to break about gender norms and um gender roles, all those things. Like men can be whoever they want. It felt like I was going like, how do I say it? It felt like I was kind of lying about that. Like you can't actually, if you are a man who likes to wear leggings, then you may not actually be a man. But it kind of felt like I needed to just think about myself and not see myself as a representation of another group of people. And once I broke off of that, I kind of went into a phase where I tried to be femme, but that was really difficult, or femme or androgynous. And for me, that was really difficult because my first few months working at where I'm at right now, which is a restaurant I was hosting, and always hearing people say thanks, man, thanks, things like that. It was just really tough to do. And I remember there was a few months and a few weeks where I tried to make my voice sound a little bit more femme, because I was kind of taught that women or people who aren't men have a softer pitch voice and like, but the thing is, that's really hard for me to maintain, especially in a high, fast-paced environment like a restaurant. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really care how people perceives me as a person. It matters how I perceive myself at the end of the day, and that kind of is what became important to
I
me.
feel like also like hormones helps with that too. Like not
Yes.
caring about perception, because I feel like now that I'm on moans, like even if I get misgendered, it doesn't matter as much because it's like I know that I'm not a man, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would definitely say so because for me, I've been on estrogen, just estrogen for basically come November 27th, I want to say 14 months. And I don't really have a doubt in my mind about my identity and the like. So I'm pretty confident in who I am.
HRT is so weird because it's literally like your brain is changing, your entire body is changing. Like it's an entire it really is a transition. Everything is in transition. It's so weird.
Transformation right there.
Yes, it really is like a transformation every fucking day. It's so weird.
Yeah, for me, what kind of like was a catalyst to me wanting to start HRT or start estrogen was the euphoria I got when I first tried on a push-up bra, seeing myself as something that wasn't, either gender, but it felt very feminine, felt more like myself. And I wanted to make sure I kept that euphoria. So I decided to start estrogen and I wanted that. So yeah.
So do you feel like we were talking about societal expectations and norms and stuff? Do you feel like that had an effect on you growing up?
Yes, very much so. I grew up in Fort Wayne and I grew up in a Baptist household that went to church regularly. So I would basically only hear um, things that the pastor would say and whatnot. And my mom would kind of regurgitate those thoughts and feelings.
Right, yeah.
And if I came home wearing like nail polish, my mom would like take that off. If I wore heels or a skirt for like any like if I wore heels or skirt for any spirit week at high school, I would be questioned about my sexuality or gender. I remember she was a crazy one, but my one of my first relationships, she saw me, wearing a skirt, and she said, "You're not, bi or gay, are you?" And I'm like, or trans, and I'm like, at the time it was like no, and she's like, okay, cool, because if you were, I would end our relationship, and it's like, okay. And then I remember when I was back in 2018 when I went home for a family funeral, I had black nail polish on my hands from leftover just from because. And everyone, when I came home, everyone was questioning if I was in a rock band or things like that. And that was when my mom found out that I've been buying leggings and all these things. So it felt like, and then that's when she started like questioning like my gender and sexuality, like constantly asking, am I gay, bi, trans, just for wearing leggings? And I remember in May of 2018, my brother, who I don't even see him as family anymore, or someone that I can say that I really care for, because he kind of joined a religious, kind of like an extremist group. He basically told me that is somehow scientifically proven that it's unnatural for black men to be feminine and date outside their race, and that if I wanted to get myself fixed, that I can join his group, and kind of left a disdain for me for him. So
Yeah, because dating outside of your race is just so abnormal for black men.
yeah.
I feel like with my upbringing, it was so weird because it wasn't like my family was ultra religious. My mom is religious, which disclaimer, me and my mom's relationship is like great. My mom's never really been like anti-queer. She's just really religious. Like she's accepting of everyone, but then she's like, "What do you mean you don't believe in God? Like what's up with that?" With my dad, he was never religious at all. I feel like my dad is like basically atheist. But the thing is my dad, at least when I was growing up, like took on this culture of masculinity. And I think it's just because he had grown up poor and he had grown up with parents that never married. And I think he was trying to fit into this idea of this perfect, like, white nuclear family. And the only reason I say that is because my dad always tells me, like, the reason why I joined the army is because I, knew that you were being born and I just wanted to give you this life and whatever. And so he just had this idea of being this certain type of man and like giving us a certain type of like structure. And I don't know, I sound like a really bad person for shitting all over that, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I will say that because he was trying to alter himself to give himself what he thought was the best version of family and the best version of like taking care of children and being a man. I think he was trying to pass that down to me. So it was like this culture of masculinity, this culture of like, and so homophobia came with that, and transphobia came with that, and anti-femininity came with that. They were like kind of like, they were not bugs but features. And so that kind of stuck with me until like I wasn't around my dad anymore. And so I started to just kind of, I didn't have any religious trauma, but I definitely had a lot of just like almost locker room trauma, you know, like because that's what my
Yeah.
dad was like growing up. Was just very like this kind of locker room homophobia. Like it's kind of like a secular homophobia and anti-femininity. And then I remember when my dad wasn't around anymore, and we were still going to church, but like because my mom wasn't that, and I was just around her now, I kind of felt this weight. And then I was able to slowly but surely kind of find myself because I didn't have a bitch in my ear telling me that
Oh
I
my
couldn't do
gosh.
anything
That's
that I wanted to
me.
do.
That's me, but with my mom, because I grew up in a household without my dad in it. Um, so it was me, my brother, and my mom in the main household, and it felt like my mom kind of picked up the masculine roles and the masculine like character types and whatnot. So it felt like everyone in the household had to be some sort of masculine in some type of way. Like my brother did track, I did wrestling and cross country, and so I remember when I did cheerleading one year, everyone was like, "What? We don't do cheerleading. That's not you." And it's like, but I want to. So that happened. And then I remember when I moved to, not moved to, but when I was living in the dorms at Ball State for my sophomore year, that's when I started to like try to like test out the waters with like feminine stuff like what's it called? Booty shorts or like leggings and tight fitted clothing. It felt like I was becoming more of myself. And once I moved to Muncie full time in 2017, it's like, yeah, this is definitely who I am. And it felt like as my connection with my mom started to like weaken because I felt weakened because of the distance, it felt like the connection to my true identity kind of strengthened, thankfully. So,
Yeah, I think that I kind of felt this weirdness with my dad because I was just like was his first as his first son, and like I always had this feeling that I was kind of like disappointing. And every time me and my dad have this conversation, he's like, "No, no, you're my child. Like I would be disappointed at my child, but I like with my women's intuition. I feel like I've always possessed my women's intuition. I could just pick up on that there was this sort of feeling of disappointment. So I feel like there had to be time where I had to like be separate from my dad for a while so that I could kind of like figure my own shit out because I think my dad had to be away from me for a while too, because I think the only way he would have been able to allow me to be me and like be okay with that and not go back to what he knew, which is like trying to push down this masculinity that was pushed down onto him, which to him is his form of loving. He had to just like be separate from me for a while and like go back to, okay, so you're not my son anymore. You're your own person with your own thoughts and your own feelings. And, you know, looking at the bigger picture, not missing the forest for the trees and sort of thinking like, do I want to give up an entire relationship because of, you know, upkeeping the culture of masculinity? It's like, no, actually, I don't. Um, so I think that we both were affected by societal expectations and we both needed like that separate
yeah.
time away from each other
Yeah.
to kind of like reconnect.
Yeah, it's interesting because I gave myself time to reconnect. It hasn't gotten really that better with my mom because it was really difficult for me to explain non-binary to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
She thought it was like some type of tax thing, which I thought was really funny.
Tax thing.
Yeah. And she kept like at the time I didn't want to say that I'm a transgender person just because like I didn't know if like that would mean like I would get like no longer get financial support from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that also happened in the same time as the Dave Chappelle, comedy sketch where he just kept on talking on trans people.
Yeah, which you just open a whole can of worms saying that name.
Yeah.
But.
So that connection there really kind of just like fainted and isn't really that as strong. But my connection with my nieces, wait, not niece, aunts. There we go. With my aunts is amazing. I love them all, and I'm kind of surprised that even my great grandma is probably one of my best supportive family members. So, yeah.
Which the Outcast podcast does have an episode about Dave Chappelle. I'm not on it, but it exists. So
I mean, you should check it out.
Yeah, if you want to hear a bunch of trans people bitch about Dave Chappelle, But since we're talking about Dave Chappelle, we're talking about public figures.
If I'm gonna be honest, I did not see it. I've heard about it, but I've never seen it. And for me, it was just the fact that like my mom was not able to understand that, trans people can also be Black, and not understanding that intersectionality.
Yeah.
And my mom.
So my question to you is, do you feel like Black trans people's depiction has improved, like in media, like in movies, TV shows? Because I have my own thoughts, but
That's a tough question for me to answer, because the most recent depiction for me of Black trans people is from Pose.
Yeah.
And
Pose.
Pose is amazing. And there's not another film that comes to mind, but I know, what's her name? I think it's Laverne.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Miss Laverne.
Laverne Cox.
My friends always make jokes about like if I ever become famous, that people are gonna call me the bootleg Laverne Cox.
Oh my god.
Because I'm always wearing blonde units.
Yeah, I think those depictions are great. But I think we need more of it where it doesn't just. How do I say it? I know they're not Black trans depictions, but I know like Family Guy and Pryor is just like going off of stereotypes and the shock factor.
Yeah, well, because like I feel like there were so many depictions of trans women's bodies being depicted as disgusting. There's so many scenes where it's just like you show a woman and then you show her naked body and then you have like your male lead throwing up, and so you like teach people how to react like when they see a trans person's body. And I think that over time it's improved, because usually you would see trans women depicted as just being sex workers, not to shit on sex work, but that was all you saw. And then it would just be like sex worker number 1 and and whatever crime show being murdered. And with the occasional Lifetime, which is weird to think that Lifetime was like one of the first like networks to like actually be sympathetic to trans people. But I think like Pose is definitely an anomaly, because there really isn't another show on that scale that features that many Black trans women. And there's been like other like good things, with like Laverne on Orange is the New Black, and like Josie Totah.
Wait, she's on Orange is the New Black?
Yeah.
I guess I need to watch that show then.
That was kind of like her in Orange is the New Black was really the first time you really saw a trans person with a real, like she had with a real role, like, and just like
her character is a trans person. Yeah,
it was like it was really something. Like Orange is the New Black was like the first thing, and recently there was Billy Porter's directorial debut, Anything's Possible, which me and Ryan talk about so much. And like it was okay. It was very just like trans love Simon, which is what I was expecting. But I feel like because Black trans women are so degraded and debased in media, especially in the past. I think a lot of people feel really bad about that. So they're afraid of, with trans people in general, they're just afraid of showing us in a bad light. So they just don't write real characters. So they won't give their characters any real character flaws. And me and Ryan were talking about like Kelsa's depiction in Anything's Possible. She's depicted as like she's smart and she has all the answers and she's just perfect and she's confident and she doesn't feel anything. It's just like you wouldn't even really know that this was a narrative about a trans person if it wasn't talked about. But on top of that, though, that's like the story of it, if that makes any sense. It's like it's completely sanitized itself to appeal to a large audience instead of actually writing about what actually like makes a character interesting. It's like, let's do a rom-com with a trans teenage girl for the sake of doing it, but not actually, imbuing any like sense of humor, any characters actually latch onto or relate to. So it's kind of just like you watch it for the novelty of it and not for the actual story of it. And I feel like that's where I guess my problem is. Like, I love seeing the dolls win. I love seeing the dolls like, get their little check or whatever,
and shine in front of the cameras. Yeah.
But I'm just like, can the stories improve? Can we like get a little better at writing? Like, you can show a trans woman that's a bad person. Like, you know what I mean?
And I feel like showing a trans person in a bad light isn't a bad thing. Like, if it's like
some trans people are just fucking bad people.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm one of those people, honestly.
Oh my gosh, girl. I mean, like, I feel like if it's like nonfiction or like, well, not nonfiction, but like, fictional stories, like you can have a trans person be a villain if you wanted to. You can have a trans person be the good person, or you can have the trans person just be like,
Because if you're a good writer, people will still be able to empathize with them. Like, we're not these perfect, beacons of hope, like fucking Angel and Brent. Like, we're not these fucking angel. We're people, we lie, we do fuck shit, like,
And I feel like on that notion too, like directors, producers, they have to understand that trans people are also not monoliths. Like, it's not like, oh, we're all like Nikita Dragon or, different types of famous trans people.
So this is like a less serious question. What is your pump through item? Do you know what that term means?
No. Can you explain it a little bit?
Okay, so like I learned this term when I was like interacting with a lot of Black transsexual women, and basically a pump through item is like your go-to thing that makes you be able to like go throughout of the world and like pump through. Because like pump through is kind of a thing in the Black transsexual community of like you're pumping through, like you're getting through, like you're, So like, what is that one thing? Because I know what my thing is.
That one thing that gets you through, like, get me through the day or get me through the week,
just like get you through the day. Could be a clothing item, makeup item.
I would say, can it be more than just one item? Or
sure.
I would say it's a mixture of eyeshadow, estradiol, and a skirt. Like, those three are my trifecta to just get through the day, get through the week,
Mine is a good halter. Halter and just like a little bit of mascara and like curling my hair. Like, those are my three like pump throughs. Like, when my hair is curled and I'm wearing a halter top, I'm just like,
see, I've never learned how to curl my hair, so I would need to learn how to do it.
Teach you how to curl your hair.
Please do. Oh my God.
So, you were talking about gender euphoria earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe like any other times where you like felt like true gender euphoria?
So obviously that time that I mentioned before, and just for if anyone doesn't know, gender euphoria is basically feeling excited about something that basically relates to your gender, If I would have to say something that I usually feel gender euphoric about is just coming up with a good outfit for the night, because that's when I can usually be as femme or as androgynous as possible. And when I'm able to match a good dress or a skirt and crop with, or a top with my eyeshadow and highlighter and blush, it just makes me really happy and just excited. And another time that, and this actually happened recently because I was thinking about the idea of seeing my actual name presented everywhere. I'm actually planning on getting a passport, so I can have my name reflected as who I am. So I wanted, I was working out yesterday, and just the thought of seeing Teri on the expo screen at my restaurant or at the bank or pulling it out, it just made me cry happy tears while I was working out, and it just shocked me, you know, because it feels like the names that I see everywhere that is supposed to be me, that isn't me, and it feels like that person's dead,
Yeah.
you know.
It's sort of weird. I think it's because my identity is more binary now, but I feel like I feel a lot less gender euphoria now that I'm on hormones. It's kind of like a gender neutrality. And I think that might also be because now that I'm on hormones, I kind of like carry myself differently. So I think that like I get like I don't get misgendered as often anymore because I think like post hormones like carry myself differently. Um, but there was recently when I had a date with this guy, and it wasn't necessarily him that made me feel gender euphoria fully. It was like when we were sitting at the table and the server was like, "And what will the lady be having?" And that made me feel gender euphoria because I haven't been taken out on a lot of dates, which like sounds really sad. But like on top of that, it was just like the way in which the date was orchestrated, and this was all in his subconscious. But I always felt like I don't know that I will ever truly be able to be perceived as a woman in like a real life space, either by the people I'm dating or other people that I'm interacting with. And then being seen as a woman who is on a date, that was very euphoric for me. But I feel like gender euphoria isn't really, I don't feel dysphoria, so I don't necessarily feel euphoria anymore. I feel like I feel gender euphoria a lot more when I was dysphoric because the euphoria was like alleviating a lot of the dysphoria that I had. And I feel like now, because hormones have pretty much depleted my dysphoria, I don't really feel euphoria anymore. So I don't know. It's a weird feeling to like. I wouldn't say I don't feel it at all. It's just like it's very rare that I feel it. If that makes any sense.
Before HRT, I started estrogen and my journey like with medically transitioning. I mainly just got gender euphoria just from makeup and coming up with outfits.
Yeah.
And but also with that too, I also constantly had like crisis of thinking, am I good enough or things like that.
Yeah.
But within like I want to say the first few months on estrogen, all those negative thoughts kind of went away about my gender, like,
Yeah.
like doubting myself, and it's just been just a breeze,
I
you
don't
know?
know if this feeling of not feeling gender euphoria anymore is because of my particular experience, because I think like as a trans woman, I'm kind of like in that weird middle where sometimes I pass it and sometimes I don't. And so like there are times where, and I'm not saying like I'm not like an Amaya Scott trans woman to where like you're not ever going to know, but like there have been times where I have passed, and I think that because of that, because it happens like 50-60% of the time, I think that that might also be why I don't experience gender euphoria anymore, because I think in my brain, for the most part, at least now, I'm being perceived as a woman about like 65% of the time. So I don't necessarily feel dysphoria anymore. And so since I'm no longer feeling dysphoria about not being perceived as a woman, I guess I'm not really receiving gender euphoria from being seen as a woman because it's kind of like a mundane sort of thing. I don't
Like it's
know.
so common that you are perceived as a woman that it's no longer euphoric.
Yes, and that really sounds like bragging, but it's not because I know what I give. Like I know that I don't like 100% pass, but there are moments where a lot of times I more times than I think I do. So I think that that might also like influence like how much dysphoria and like euphoria you feel, I guess. Because I guess I didn't realize until I like interacting with other trans women how there was eras of privilege, I guess, in the way I was experiencing things because I just was talking about like how like being very afraid of dressing femininely and then talking about like, oh, it was very surprising because everyone, would pretty much assume my pronouns and like realizing like, oh shit, that's not a fucking universal
Yeah.
experience and just feeling like, oh shit, like that kind of also privilege kind of can also sort of fuel how you perceive the world and how you see things. And
I mean, with me and passing, it's kind of odd because, when I'm a server and host, there's like a uniform that we have to wear, black shirt, like black polo or dress shirt, and black like dress pants.
yeah,
So there's really no way for me to actually pass um in front of like customers and everything. And I know usually people will come up to me, even though I'm a good server or a good host, people will be like, "Good job, man," or "Good job, buddy." And the my front of house staff and coworkers, they're like, "That's just really awkward because they don't perceive me as a man anymore, and I don't perceive myself as a man anymore." But for me, how I see it is, as long as I have support from obviously myself, but also
yeah,
my coworkers, then I give little hecks about what they say.
yeah.
But I
I feel like the idea of sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think the idea of passing might also be different if your gender identity is more, um, if it's not binary, if it's like
yeah,
outside of the binary
yeah.
layer.
There's been a few times I want to say where like a customer or a table will ask for my pronouns and it catches me off guard, and it made me smile a little bit. Um, Obviously, I'm scared to like just say that to one of my tables because like if another table overhears, I'm like, will this affect my tip on that table?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if they're gonna give me a smaller tip because they learned that I use pronouns, then oh well, be it.
Oh my God, who uses
Oh my
those?
gosh. Um, there was one time I was out in the village area in Muncie,
Mhm.
and it just scared me that I didn't pass as a man, but I passed as a woman. It was Halloween night, like the Halloween weekend night, and I had on a silver crop top, uh, silver leather skirt, obviously a bumblebee wings, there we go. I was looking for the word. And I immediately get out of the Uber.
Mhm.
And during the whole ride in the Uber, I was using my femme voice to just go into fight or flight mode for some reason. But
Mhm.
immediately when I go out of the Uber, this one guy passes by on his ways to Brothers, and he complimented me, and I said thank you and tried to just go my way into Be Here Now. And he tried to hit on me, try to get my number. And I'm like, I'm good. I do not want to talk to you because my thing is what happens if, I don't know if I need to explain this, but I'm just always scared of, people finding out that what they are attracted to is not a cis woman.
Yes, and that's sort of the scary thing. Like I would notice sometimes I'm at the bar with my friends, I'll be interacting with a guy. Um and in my head, I'm still there are still times where I still am that like lanky, awkward gay kid from middle school. And so when I go out, like even though I will go out and I'll be wearing a fucking halter top and like fucking short ass skirt and heels and all that. But in my head, I'm still that I'm still that like 12-year-old like awkward gay kid. So then when I'm interacting with men and just like, this is a normal interaction, like, they're not attracted to me. Why would they be attracted to me? Like, that doesn't happen, Because like in my head, I'm still mentally that kid. And then they will start to show attraction. And then there's just like this awkward moment where they're like, oh, so like, do you want to like hang out after this? And it's like, and there's been a couple of times with guys where I'm like, you don't actually like me. You don't actually want to hang out with me, which is a very weird response to have to someone telling you that they like you. But I'm like, you think you like me, but let's have a conversation.
You just want me, yeah.
Yeah, like you think you want me, you think you want this, but like actually no. And I'm just like very afraid of, because I've heard stories of men who have been attracted to trans women not knowing and then finding out and then reacting negatively. And I'm very afraid of a guy being attracted to me and then like,
Actually, one of my friends on TikTok, they actually had a story where, they matched with someone on Tinder or a dating app, and they mentioned before meeting up that she was trans and the guy was okay with that, but they still met up, and she had bruises over her faces from when she was beaten up by the guy, and like that stuff scares me.
Yeah, it just makes me not want to date at all because
Yeah.
because here's the thing is like I'm honest with guys from the get-go. Like I will tell them on dating apps like within our first conversation. But I'm scared that like something will flip in his brain and then like trauma will come out and then you just like start wailing on my ass. Like then what will I do then? Like I'm on HRT, like I'm weak now. Like I can't fucking
See for me it's like I'm pansexual, so like I don't really care about gender. Like I'll shoot my shot with anyone. It just depends on if I have a good vibe with you. But it's like usually most of the time I don't get a good vibe of men, and there's a good reason for that.
They don't give good vibes.
Yeah.
Not all men. Disclaimer.
Yeah, Shawn Mendes is good. So your dream man is a mechanic?
I talk to my friends all the time about how like I have this thing where I will have like I'll have a mutual infatuation with a blue collar chaser. And I always joke with guys that I date that I'm gonna write a dissertation on blue collar men and trans women, especially like construction workers and trans women, because like construction workers love trans women. They're gonna deny this, but like it's the truth. Like construction workers, they love the dolls. Like just like if you're a trans woman, just walk past a construction site and just watch everybody stop working. Like it's just the truth. Like the amount of the trans women that like can think about how many construction workers are just like in their dating app. like it's just like construction workers, maintenance men, electricians,
Honestly, if Grindr like said like what your occupation was, it might tell some stuff.
It's real. It's true. Like imagine the amount of like maintenance men that are texting like the most beautiful transsexual on their break. Like it's just real. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about the real stuff.
You're something else, guys.
So since moving to Muncie, like how has dating been for you?
So I must preface this that I have no game whatsoever.
Neither do I. I sit and
like
wait.
It doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, anywhere between or outside. I'm shy.
Do you feel like flirting with women is harder than flirting with men?
So flirting with men is scary. Flirting with women is sometimes scary, but also easy. But then
Is it like intimidating?
It's a little bit intimidating.
That's what like I am just like a like boring straight trans women. But like my best friend is a bisexual woman, and she tells me about all the time like how she feels confident with men, like flirting with them it's easier, but with flirting with women it's just very intimidating.
For me, it's like when I try to talk to other non-binary people or even basically cis queer people, I feel very good about myself because it's like, okay, especially when this happens at the mark, it's like, okay, I have kind of like a home field advantage, just some type of spark that could happen.
Yeah.
If I go to Brothers, Be Here Now to Chug, it's like I'm at like the away area. It's like, well, the odds are stacked against my favor.
It's very sicko mode central, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
No one is gonna get that inside joke.
Yeah, where the sun is down and it's freezing cold.
It's just like very like Village gives me just very oh my god, the Ball State kids are not gonna like this. But the Village just gives me just very danger vibes, you know? It's just very like it's very frat boy central.
Whenever I'm in the Village or whenever I go to Be Here Now for like, you know, whenever they have their drag night, I hold on to my pepper spray in my purse for like dear life.
It's a war zone.
Like I literally hold on to it like do I have to use this tonight? Just for the fact that I've had a few times where I don't know if we're allowed, like, how explicit we can be with words, but I remember there's been times where it's like one of my coworkers outed me as, you know, non-binary and said what my pronouns are, and this guy literally goes, I don't give an F what your pronouns, about pronouns. You're she.
Lightning, you can say fuck.
Okay. But this guy was basically like, I don't give a fuck about pronouns. You're a she, and that's a he. And literally a few days after that, I'm in line to basically meet with my friends that were in Brothers for like Bug Club and $2 burgers. Sadly, I didn't get the $2 burger, which is okay.
Wait, Brothers has $2 burgers?
Did you actually not know this?
I've never had food at like Brothers. Like,
don't worry, just come to my restaurant.
It's not
it's
your restaurant.
I mean, it's probably. Yeah, you get what you pay for. But anyways, I'm standing in line trying to get in to meet my friends. And right in front of me is like a group of like frat-looking boys. And, you know, they're like...
Sicko mode.
Yeah, sicko mode
experience, if you will.
And they're basically trying to figure out if they can like have their group sit. And basically they're all about to leave and whatnot. And one of them comes and like looks at me. I'm in a kind of purple, little bit skin tight, flowy dress with eyeshadow on, and one of them says, "Let's go. We don't want to be here with some mags." Like, I don't want to say the F slur, but there's kind of like saying that.
Yeah.
And
every time I'm at Brothers, it just feels like it's like boys from my high school, the DL community TM on Grindr, and then girls from my high school. So it's just like very awkward. Just like boys from my high school like looking at me, and then they're like, oh my god, that's, and I'm like, fuck, like I just got clocked so fucking hard because I had fucking science class with one of these boys, and they're like, oh shit, that's you, like that's fucking funny. And then seeing girls from I remember seeing girls from my high school in the bathroom, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, like I'm getting through, like nobody's clocking me, nobody's asking me my pronouns, like come on. And then I see girls from my high school, and they immediately just like screamed my dead name. I was like, oh fuck. I was like, it's over with. Let's just go to the urinal. Let's just go to the urinal. See, everybody knows now.
See, you scare me sometimes because like I'm used to like getting clocked, like being more physical, like you know, not baby, just being out.
It's a clock.
Like yeah.
It's a clock. You know, it's just like I see you. I see what you're trying to give, but you're not giving me that. That's what it's a clock.
I got you now. Yeah. I think of it like you get clocked, like you know.
No, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm thinking?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The black T girls, they're gonna know what I'm. They gonna pick up what I'm putting down. You know, because we see each other. You know, they gonna know what I'm talking about. The rest, everybody else, you know, it's just like I don't know. Black trans femmes, like we're just on another wavelength. Like we're just over here, just like vibing, doing our own shit, and everybody else is just like they need they need to catch up. You know, like every time I meet a man and he likes me, he's just like, "Wow, you're just really on some other shit." I'm like, "I know. Like, are you ready for that? Are you ready for
He ain't
it?"
ready
Like,
for
no,
this.
you're not fucking ready. Like that's why it's so hard for me to date because I just feel like dating in the Midwest, like as a black trans woman, it's just like I'm I find men that I connect with, but they're not really ready for me. They're not ready to be with me in the way that I need. It's always like, can we like meet up on the side? Like, can you like fucking like can you be a secret? Like I
Like a
always have to
secret,
be.
and you don't want to be a
No, I
secret.
don't want to be the fucking secret. Like what the fuck? Like no.
And for me, it's like it's difficult because the only other than like going out to bars, the only way that I can meet people is through Grinder because I unfortunately have been banned on Tinder since I want to say April
I am
or March.
also banned on fucking Tinder. Let's talk
Wow.
about this. Okay, fucking Tinder needs to be defunded because of the amount of trans women that are banned from Tinder. So first of all, Tinder got rid of like they got rid of this option where you could like not see trans people anymore, which sounds shitty. But here's the
Really?
thing: I feel like that should be like this is okay. This is a problematic opinion, but I feel like men should be able to decipher out trans women on dating apps, and the reason why is because I feel like if you don't want to talk to trans women, I don't think you should have access to us because I feel like it puts us in these awkward situations where we have to deal with men who don't want to talk to us and then they take out their aggression on us and then they're like mass reporting our accounts. So then we can't even be on the accounts. Like just let them exclude us. It's fine. I am very fine being excluded from your dating pool. Like somebody's going to like it. Somebody's going to like the fact that I'm a woman with a third arm. Someone's going to like it. You know, somebody's gonna love that. So you know,
Yeah.
I just feel like Tinder is just not doing it correctly. You know, they're just not. They're not understanding. They're not listening to the dolls. You know, they're really just and that's why we keep getting mass reported because men are afraid of beautiful women with a third arm. But there are men who are looking for that, and I think that we should allow those men. We should make it easier for those men to find their goddess, with a third arm.
Oh my gosh, girl. See, for me, how it happened was sadly, I don't. So, how do I explain this? Tinder had an option from when I was on it. They had an option of, choosing non-binary as your gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is, after you choose non-binary, they're like, cool. Do you want to be shown to people who are looking for men or shown to people who are looking for women? And I'm like,
Bumble does the same shit.
and it's like, so you just adding a binary to the
They
non-binary.
literally said, "Are you a boy non-binary or a girl non-binary?"
Yeah, it's like, yo, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, I don't see myself as a man, so let's do woman. And I'm gonna guess what happened is people like basically reported my account and
Yeah, that's what happened because men were mad that we matched. It's like, okay,
yeah.
why do you have to report my account? Like, I get it. You don't want to sleep with a trans woman or you don't want to go on a date with a trans woman. I think that that's totally fine. But why do I have to get off the app? Because you're mad that we matched. Just a match.
I feel like it should not be on the what is it? On on our end to be like, yes, let's put out that let's like let people know that we are trans or hey, let's maybe how do I say it? Prefer to be shown to people who want men or women. It should be put instead on the other people being like, are you okay with being shown trans women?
Yeah, they
or
should be
are
allowed
you
to
okay with
exclude us
being
from their
excluded?
algorithm
Yeah.
because then they won't have to interact with us and it would make it much more safe. Like, I don't want to fucking talk to men who are not into trans women. Like,
Yeah, they're probably lame
I don't
ducks.
want it. Yeah, like I don't want to fucking do that. Like
Yeah.
if you want to be with a cis woman, I think that that's great. You should go be with Kaylee and have like 5 kids and that's really cute for you. But like I'm not that and I'm never going to give that. Like I can't have children. I have what I have. It is what it is. Somebody's going to like it. Like I don't need to interact with men who are like I'm looking for my family. I'm looking to start a family. It's like, start a family with what uterus? Because it's not here.
Hey, maybe James is okay with getting with Abby when the sun is down and it's freezing cold.
Oh my god! It's just the fact that you. Never mind. Two guys that I went on a date with that one guy, and then he was interacting with another guy that I'm seeing, and they both they don't know about each other, because Hunter is slick like that. I'm not gonna make sure that they know about each other, but they had interacted with each other, and they were both moaning to each other as a joke, and I'm just sitting there thinking wow, Hunter, you really have great taste in men. This is what the two guys that you like, that's what they're doing. I really had to sit and reflect. Am I really making good choices?
Your taste may be a little flat.
I think you could be a little bit meaner. I think it's worse than that. I think it's much worse than that. It's to the point now where my mom has just been Hunter, I just want you to find someone that really cares about you. I want you to do better with your dating choices. Just sitting there don't make me cry, Bob, because you're actually right. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because it's just with trans misogyny, it just makes dating hard in general, but especially for me, because I feel at least with cis men anyway, I don't really feel this with trans men, but with dating cis men, because if they're straight anyway, they don't necessarily have the culture of queerness and queer identity.
Do you think it's easier with cis queer men?
Yes, and so the reason why I feel that is because with cis straight men, they don't necessarily have the culture of queer culture. It's not something they've ever been in. Their culture is their family and their friends, and so they're more apt to kind of succumb to the feelings of their friends and their family because it's all that they have. Whereas with queer men, bisexual men, pansexual men, which is usually honestly what I prefer to date myself, I feel they already deal with, unless they're DL, we don't talk to the DL community, but open bisexual and pansexual men, they already experience that subjugation for their queerness from family and maybe friends that they had growing up. So it's not a big deal for them to step out with a trans woman, and it's not a big deal for them to also be perceived as queer in some way because they're already queer. But with straight men, they have this big crisis of oh my god, people are gonna think that I'm gay, and what are my friends gonna say? And with queer men, it's a little bit less likely. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen at all, but I feel they're less concerned with trying to uphold a certain level of masculinity because they kind of fit outside of that. But also, bisexual and pansexual men are a little bit more rare than straight men are. So a lot of the men that I have dated and interacted with in a romantic context are straight, which people always kind of are what what straight man is gonna be attracted to you, which let's just say straight men being attracted to you is not a big thing. People just think oh, a straight man being into me, a straight man wanting to fuck me just means I'm just as real as rain, I'm just really giving. It's no, straight men will a straight man will fuck a McChicken, let's just be fucking for real. But it's straight men are just more common than queer men, so that's just most of what I've dated, and so it's really informed the way that my experiences are. And so it's just dating just feels impossible, and it just feels me being in a relationship, at least in this town, it's just will never ever 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 work. And I'm so pessimistic, but that's just how it feels at this point. I'm just I just feel I'm constantly having dates and hookups and these flings, and it never feels it really goes anywhere. And it's I feel if I were cis, would not be like this. If I were cis, I'd be I'd be happy 4th anniversary.
Oh no, if I was cis, I would still struggle, let's be honest. Um, for me, it feels like I haven't dated much just
Mm-hmm.
because, once again, I have little to no game. You can put a three throw right in front of me, and it's like I would still miss. And it feels as if, like, the only two dates I've actually gone on has been with other non-binary people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been from. I don't like putting the non-binary in a. I don't like putting the non-binary in a binary, but it's mostly been from AFAB non-binary people,
Mm-hmm.
and their experiences are obviously different from the AMAB non-binary
Yeah.
people, and it felt like there really wasn't that much of a connection that I could get. And other than that, I've had hookups, but like the hookups have felt more of kind of like I'm a fetish or it's like a kind of rare oddity. And it's like, ew,
Yeah.
no.
Hookups, like, I've I've kind of been trying to like contextualize my entire sexual life, and um because I came out so young, I kind of had experiences where, in high school and like when I was like 18, 19, where I'm like hooking up with men that are like much older than I am. And there was this woman made this great point of like, youth doesn't always make you a prize, it sometimes makes you prey. And I think that my youth at that time, like, definitely made me pray for men who had a lot of bad intentions and who wanted to have like these experiences with like a young person. And so that's definitely shaped like how some of my hookups have been, where it's like, oh, I want to like explore, this fantasy that I've been having because I've been watching trans porn, and I've been really just turned off to even the idea of having sex with most straight men just because of the way in which they perceive trans women and the way that they treat us, especially, and like and that like especially staying away from Grinder and stuff, because it's like really is like the DL community TM. Like, I just have memories of like this one guy like telling me, like, this is a long time ago, but this guy being like stopping me from using the bathroom because he didn't want his roommates to like see me there. And that was kind of like a moment of, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I can't even. I'm with this guy who like won't even let me go to the bathroom because he doesn't want his roommates to see me. Like, this is not the type of men that I want to keep dealing with. Like, I'm putting myself in harm's way dealing with men who are ashamed of me. And so I've gotten to this place too, whether whether we decide to get in a serious relationship, whether we're just fucking, like, if you can't sit in a bar with me, I can't do anything with you. I can't even like give you my body. And I feel like once I made that affirmation to myself, it's really improved my dating pool, messy as it is.
If we can, is if it's okay for me to ask, not speaking on like romantic relationships or like anything like that, how is it bringing in like your cis queer friends or your straight friends into, is it is it convincing to bring them into spaces that you feel more comfortable in, or is it like pulling tooth and nail? Like, is it hard?
Like, bringing them.
Like, let's say like I wanted to bring some of my straight friends or cis queer friends, like instead of going to Brothers or the Chug, or Be Here Now, I'm like, hey, you want to go to the Mark or something like that,
Mhm.
or somewhere where I feel a little bit more comfortable and I can
Yeah.
be myself, you know? Because like for me, it's like I'm in an environment where I can be myself, but my other friends aren't there. I don't know if that's something that you find that you struggle
No,
with.
yeah, I think that that definitely, like, what spaces you choose to be in can kind of influence like the experiences that you have and the kind of people um that you meet. I know you're talking about like that kind of aggressive moment that you had when you were out in the village, and I know that when I was in certain places, especially, like, I definitely felt that aggression. Like, I have a memory of this one time where I was at Valhalla, which isn't open anymore. But I was at Valhalla, and there was this group of guys that were sitting at the bar, and they saw me, and I could see all of them like looking at me, and they were just all collectively staring at me, and then they were all laughing. And I was like, okay, like, like, you know, like I'm used to getting stares, but like that was like they were staring me down and they were like laughing. And it was so weird because then I had gotten roped into playing pool with them with one of my friends, and none of them talked to me, and it was just so weird.
They they played pool with you, but they didn't talk to you.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like a couple of them played pool with us, but they didn't really. Only one of the friends did talk to me. He was the nice one out of everyone. He did talk to me, but everyone else just like acted like they couldn't talk to me. So I feel like sometimes being in more queer spaces, even though I do have that experience of passing and feeling comfortable in more general spaces, I feel like sometimes it is more relieving to be like on a night out. It's more relieving to be in a queer space because I feel like I don't have to necessarily think about the fact that I am trans. Like it doesn't
And you can just
matter.
be yourself and
Yeah,
just be
it's
like,
if
let's
I
get a drink. Yeah.
If I get clocked, it doesn't matter because I'm whether people know I'm trans or not, my womanhood isn't going to be taken away from me because of that. So I wanted to ask you kind of about like the current like political zeitgeist.
Like contextualize everything.
Yeah. So why do you think Indiana legislators are making trans kids playing sports an issue right now? Like, why do you think that's like?
So that's really interesting for me because you look at the numbers back, I want to say in April, and within like the past year or two, out of the many of athletes that they have, like cisgender girls competing in sports, there's only one that's actually a trans girl. And it doesn't make that big of a case. And I feel, for me personally, it feels like they're just trying to just pump up their ego, being like, yeah, look at us. Look at how good Indiana is. We passed an anti-trans law. And it's like, yeah, you're not doing anything. Like, it's not actually accomplishing anything at all. If you wanted to like address like fairness in women's sports, maybe like give like schools that have less funding more funding. You know?
I think it's funny because like women's sports are so underserved and so under cared about, and then when this conversation comes up, people talk about how they care about making women's sports fair. Like I remember even my little sister plays volleyball, and my brother was like, "Oh, I thought your number was was something else," and she was like, "Yeah, that is my number." And so he was like, "So then why are you wearing a different jersey number?" And my mom goes, "Oh, because she's on a girls team and they buy them really bad quality jerseys and they don't replace them, so they just gave her a new number." And that's just like one example of people, and volleyball is seen as like the supreme girl sport, and even in that instance, people care so little about female athletes that even in a sport where women are seen as the premier players, it's still just not even perceived as something that people care about. So I feel like with the conversation about trans people in sports, it's not even about caring about the fairness. I think it's just like it's the easiest thing to make people divisive about trans issues. Like
because most people don't know about us.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really know what HRT actually does. So when they see trans women, they feel like, okay, you look like a woman, but your body is just like that of a cis man's, which isn't exactly the case. Like there really is a lot of like it really is, when you go on HRT, it really is a transition.
Very much.
You can't just like say I identify as a woman, my pronouns are she, her, and then get to play a female sport. You have to be on HRT for at least a year before you can even think about trying to play women's sports.
Yeah. I remember looking this up. In Indiana, you have to identify as the gender that you perceive yourself as for a whole year, and then show that you have at least medically transitioned to like some effect.
Yeah.
It's not just being like, hey, little Johnny wants to be little Maddie, and swing them onto a different gender team.
Yeah, but people's misconceptions and a lot of the misinformation that's spread, people really think that it's kind of a 1-2 sort of thing, and I think that because of that, they're like, this is the way we can get people to think that trans people are evil. They're
Yeah.
coming in, and they always like to talk about the trans woman that cracked the woman's skull in the MMA thing of like,
Even though that happens with cisgender.
this is the thing that makes us go against.
And I
that
swear,
can, like, start it, I guess.
yeah, and I swear, like most people did not care about women swimming until Leah Thomas came up.
So I think it's definitely like because they know it's like it'll start with the sports thing, and it's like, okay, trans women are infiltrating this space, and then as time goes on, they can like get people to think that trans people need to be eradicated completely, and that will like solve all of our problems and make things correctly. But it's just like it's like a long, like politics is like a long con sort of thing, but onto pretending to care about women's rights. I know people have been talking a lot about the overturn of Roe v. Wade, which completely dismembered reproductive rights, and we know there were marches and stuff like that. I can recall like that video of those women like twerking to Plan B, like the march against, like,
you're gonna have to show me
Plan
this.
B. They're twerking to Plan B by Megan Thee Stallion, which I don't know. It's just very funny to me to think about. But within that conversation, because misogyny is still so loud in our culture, I feel like the conversation about trans men and non-binary people, trans masculine people, those individuals are kind of like left out of the conversation because I think people really want to touch on the misogyny that is at play, which is kind of unfortunate because trans men and non-binary people and trans masculine people like having children, like that just is a very real thing. Like it's not a thought experiment. It's something that happens every day. Like that's just a part of life that people are kind of ignoring, which is really fucking weird. And you have to like, I can't believe in 2022 we have to be like, but what about trans men? Especially to the same people who talk about being so inclusive.
I remember this interview or kind of like this hearing between a doctor and a senator. I can't remember either of their names, but the doctor kept on making sure to use inclusive language, which wasn't even that difficult.
Yeah.
But the senator was very distraught and trying to just be like, no, and like asking a question, do you think that only women can be pregnant? And the doctor was like, no, men can be pregnant too, and just like trying to just be like, oh, that's ludicrous or that's incorrect. And it's like, no, that's it just felt like doctors understand the complexities and like the nuances of gender and pregnancies, while senators, even though they're trying to make the laws or enforce the laws, they just want to play political games without knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that that's also because in their minds women have a certain place, and so that's kind of why trans people need to be eradicated. I think that's kind of the overarching point, is that we kind of are the answer to everything. We're kind of the answer to solving gender roles, the issue of the nuclear family, rigid whatever, you know what I mean? And so like in order to keep these things in place, we kind of have to go away.
But we won't go away,
the legitimate existence of trans men, it cracks down on the idea that women are created to have children, because those are men having children. It's so weird.
Sad thing is that we'll never go away.
So is there anything that, as a Black trans femme, like, is there anything that you would like to say to the girls that will come after us inevitably?
I just have something to say in general, if that's okay too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like, especially with what happened in Colorado Springs, like I feel like I live my life in fear because I'm scared to be another list of names and a photo on the Human Rights Campaign website.
I
think I read that most of the people that are on that list are trans people of color under the age of 35 happened with and they died because of a gun. So I fit two of those descriptions. So it's
every year, girl.
I'm always scared, but I just try to make sure I'm loved by the people who care about me and actually put an effort that want to, learn more about me. And I just try to clear up any misunderstandings or misinfo as hard as it could be, but just try to love us, we cool, we vibing. So
I would like to say to any of the Black trans girls coming after me, relationships with cis women are very important, and I think that cis women need trans women and trans women also need cis women. But the thing is, though, I think that trans girls should stop comparing ourselves to cis women, because I feel like comparison is like the thief of joy. I'm acting like I just came up with that. I didn't fucking come up with that, but it really is a thief of joy. There's a reason why that's a cliche, and I think that it's what's really helped me is sort of falling in love with this idea of being this might make people shudder, but falling in love with the idea of being a transsexual woman, and just learning more about other Black transsexual women, and just seeing them and just seeing how powerful they are and how beautiful they are and how fucking funny they are and talented, and thinking about how I share community with women like T.S. Madison, who is fucking hilarious, and Amaya Scott, and Laverne, and
don't forget about India Moore. They're amazing.
All these gorgeous women. I don't know, Black trans women are we're just
shining, vibing.
We're just it. I don't know, we just have that it, and it's just trans femininity, trans feminine culture in general is just really its own thing. And it's just this beautiful thing, and it just makes me what I am, and I just fallen in love with that. So I think falling in love with my own culture as a trans person is what really saved me. And I think that if you are a trans feminine person or a trans woman, whether you identify more with womanhood or you fall a little bit out of that, I think that you should really kind of see the women that are coming before you, and realizing that you are part of something very beautiful and that you're very special, and trans people are the answer, and we are very much necessary and significant. So that is what I would want to say to the Black trans girls coming after me. We would like to take this time to thank our listeners for tuning in. It means a lot to all of us. If you want to listen to our other episodes, we are available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, and Apple Podcasts. If you need someone to talk to, look up the Trevor Project or Muncie Outreach. The suicide hotline is 800-273-8255. We all here care about you, so please take care of yourself. We will see you in the next episode.